This map illustrates the British Empire at its peak, an era when the Crown held authority over a quarter of the Earth's land and population. Long before this global reach, England was a vulnerable, fractured territory. In 878 AD, King Alfred the Great was driven into the marshlands of Somerset, forced to hide from invading Vikings, while his kingdom sat on the brink of total collapse. Survival dictated a policy of aggressive security. The English unified the Anglo-Saxon tribes and moved to subjugate their neighbors, using massive stone fortifications like this Welsh castle to turn military victories into permanent occupation. These early campaigns in Wales and Ireland provided a blueprint for expansion, showing that territorial security could be achieved through a cycle of invasion and fortification. By the late 15th century, England remained distracted by internal power struggles, while Spain and Portugal were already establishing massive colonial footholds in the Americas. King Henry VIII's desire to secure his bloodline with a male heir eventually led to a total break with the Catholic Church. By establishing the Church of England, Henry removed the religious and diplomatic barriers that had previously kept England tethered to the traditional powers of Europe. This schism placed England on a collision course with Catholic Spain, leading to the 1588 invasion attempt by the Spanish Armada. This massive fleet of 130 ships represented the most formidable naval force in the world, intended to restore Catholicism to the island by force. Utilizing smaller, faster vessels and the strategic use of fire ships to break the Spanish formation, the English Navy effectively neutralized the threat. The resulting Spanish retreat ended their monopoly on the Atlantic, leaving the oceans accessible to English exploration. The religious isolation sparked by Henry's divorce provided the political permission to challenge Spain, while the Armada's defeat provided the physical opening. England was no longer an isolated island. It was now a competitor in a global race for territory. With the Atlantic route cleared, British seafarers established permanent settlements like Jamestown. These colonies were often founded by those seeking religious autonomy or those looking to capitalize on the vast resources of the New World. The economic viability of these colonies relied on labor-intensive cash crops like tobacco and sugarcane. To turn a profit, the colonial model required a massive, constant supply of workers to maintain plantations that spanned hundreds of acres. This demand for labor fueled the transatlantic slave trade. Human beings were traded for sugar, hides, and gold. Profits were protected through violence. Legislation like the South Carolina Slave Codes defined enslaved people as barbarous and savage, legalizing brutality to ensure total control. The rapid accumulation of wealth during this era was built upon this legalized system of exploitation. Ultimately, the expansion of the empire was subsidized by the labor and lives of millions of enslaved Africans. Expansion eventually outpaced the Crown's direct resources. To keep growing, the government outsourced colonization to profit-driven monopolies like the East India Company, which were granted the authority to trade, govern, and even raise private armies. These corporations functioned as private states. They secured control over vast regions of India by exploiting local political rivalries and using bribery to install puppet rulers, as done following the Battle of Plassey in 1757. This aggressive commercial expansion eventually led to a total conflict with France. The 7 Years' War became a worldwide struggle, with major battles erupting across North America, Europe, and India. The British victory was comprehensive. The 1763 Treaty of Paris forced France to cede its Canadian and Indian claims, leaving Britain as the dominant colonial force. By the mid-18th century, the British Empire was propelled by corporate interests and private military expeditions. Profit, more than royal command, was now the primary driver of global domination. Global victory left the British treasury nearly bankrupt. To recover the costs of the 7 Years' War, Parliament sought a new way to generate revenue from its existing territories. This document, the Declaration of Independence, was the direct response to Britain's attempt to tax the American colonies. The colonists rejected the Crown's authority, citing a lack of political representation as the basis for their revolution. The resulting war culminated at Yorktown, where a coalition of colonial and French forces secured a decisive victory over the British. This portrait of George Washington represents the first major successful break from the British imperial system. The loss of the American colonies triggered an immediate change in focus. Britain began sending convict fleets to claim Australia and redirected its military resources toward a deeper, more direct occupation of the Indian subcontinent. This 900-year chain of survival, religious friction, and corporate ambition stitched the modern world together. The British Empire created a global system where the sun never set, an expansionist drive that outlived its original motivations to leave a permanent mark on history.